Greetings from the Philippines. Here we say mabuhay, which means live or live long or live strong. Something we pray for the Palestinian people who are the reason for this gathering. We welcome you all to Sumud and Resisting to Defend Life, a forum in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Let me briefly introduce myself. I am Lizette Tapia Raquel, an ordained deacon of the United Methodist Church, and currently serving at Union Theological Seminary as academic dean and faculty. This is the second forum of GKAPS, a solidarity group for the Palestinian people in the Asia Pacific in pursuit of peace with justice. In today's forum, we are joined by our partner organizations, the Ecumenical Bishops' Forum in the Philippines and the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. We are also energized by the leadership of our Indian friends who join us as individuals with the support of their institutions. Since 1948 and for 76 years, which encompass 4 or even 5 generations of Palestinians, we have witnessed the horrific displacement, genocide, and apartheid in Gaza and the West Bank. Since October 7, 2023, over 40,000 have already been killed. Almost 17,000 of them are children. Through all these, the people, both young and old, have never wavered in their commitment to defend their people and their land. One word arises to encompass the multiple expressions of resilience. It is sumud, or steadfastness. It is also a political ideology, an indicator and call for concrete action, a collective consciousness, a state of mind, or a way of life. Sumud is also something about continuing living in Palestine, laughing, enjoying life, falling in love, getting married, having children. Sumud is also continuing your studies outside to get a diploma, to come back in Palestine. Defending values is also sumud. Building a house, a beautiful one, and thinking that we are here to stay, even when the Israelis are demolishing that house and then build a new and even more beautiful one than before, that is also sumud. We shall know more about sumud and defending life from our Palestinian speaker and others, as this commitment to life is something that is vital for all people. Allow me just to read the objectives of this gathering. 1, to listen to the voices of the Palestinians on how sumud and other ideologies and concepts express their continuing resilience to defend life. 2, to explore how the Palestinian sumud resonates with the historical struggle of people in other contexts. And 3, to connect with other organizations and institutions, especially in their efforts to advocate for Palestinian liberation and the end of occupation by Israel in Palestine. We will begin with solidarity greetings from our partners. Let us first hear Ms. Mini Ann Kalub, General Secretary of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. Mini Ann.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lisette. And good afternoon, everyone, brothers and sisters, friends and partners. In the spirit of solidarity, the National Council of Churches in the Philippines extend our heartfelt greetings to all the participants, organizers, speakers, and advocates joining this online forum. This forum comes at a critical time when the world continues to witness the suffering and struggles of Palestinian people who have endured decades of occupation, violence, and dispossession. Last year, the world bore witness to a tragic and heartbreaking chapter in the history of Palestinians by Israel, marked by devastating bombings and horrendous acts of violence in Gaza and in the West Bank. These atrocities amounted to what many human rights observers have described as a genocide against the Palestinian people. The international community grieved the loss of countless innocent lives, especially children, and condemned the widespread destruction. Amid this deep sorrow, we also recognize the indomitable spirit and strength of the Palestinian people, embodied in their steadfast commitment to sumud, steadfastness and resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. The National Council of Churches in the Philippines stands in solidarity with the global church community, the people's movements, and all who strive for justice and peace for Palestine. We affirm our unwavering commitment to the cause of the Palestinian people for the enjoyment and protection of their land, their history, and their right to live in peace with dignity. In a world where the forces of imperialist wars continue to dictate the daily lives of our sisters and brothers in Palestine, we cannot remain indifferent. It is imperative that we challenge and resist the normalization of war and occupation of land and life, with its violence that threatens the sanctity of human life in Palestine. The NCCP calls for an immediate end to this senseless imperialist war waged against Palestinians and now escalates to other wars in countries such as the Lebanese people. The sanctity of life must be upheld above all else. As a community of churches, we continue to assert and affirm the previous 25th General Convention statement of NCCP on Palestine, and I quote, "With the situation in Gaza so egregious as to be described as genocide by human rights watchdogs, the churches are obligated to unite in defense of the rights of civilians, including their right to life, their right to resist occupation, and their right to self-determination. We must confront and denounce any rhetoric that seeks to justify these injustices. We must not condone Zionist claims within Christian circles that seek to legitimize, under the guise of being the chosen people, the illegal occupation of Palestinian lands and the systematic violation of human rights. These outdated and harmful assertions must be corrected to reflect our shared commitment to truth, justice, and human dignity. As a collective of faith communities, let us continue to pray and work tirelessly towards a world where peace, justice, and compassion reign, and where all people, regardless of their background, can live free from war, fear, and oppression. May our efforts contribute to a just peace in Palestine, contribute to the growing global movement that fights for the dignity and sanctity of all human life and lands. We will continue to stand in unity with all those who fight for justice, peace, and human dignity. Thank you, and may the God of peace continue to be with us in our quest for just peace in Palestine and to the world. Magandang hapon and mabuhay.
Thank you, Ms. Minian. We just heard the solidarity greetings from the National Council of Churches in the Philippines through Ms. Minian Kalup. NCCP has always been a strong advocate for human rights and justice all over the world. Our next speaker is Dr. Songram Basumatari, Principal of Gurukul Lutheran Theological College in India. Dr. Songram. Is he here with us? Rasuna? Dr. Songram, let me see.
Songram Basumatari.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was here. He might have been locked out, so we can go ahead and when he comes back, I'll signal you.
Okay. Now maybe let's hear from Reverend Alan Sarte, Secretary General of the Philippines and Palestine Friendship Association, Coordinator of Peace for Life, and former Coordinator of the EAP, the Ecumenical Accompaniment Program in Palestine and Israel, Philippines chapter. Reverend Sarte.
Thank you, Lizette. On behalf of the Philippines Palestine Friendship Association, this is a network promoting solidarity for the struggles of the peoples of Palestine and Philippines for self-determination. I would like, first of all, to express thanks to the Global Kairos Asia-Pacific Solidarity for Palestine, and of course, its Theology Commission for inviting us to this forum on Sumud and Palestinian resistance. If there is one lesson that the one-year Al-Aqsa flood and the unspeakable genocidal war inflicted in Gaza by Zionist Israel has taught us, actually more than 76 years of genocidal occupation, it is this steadfastness of resistance by the Palestinian people. With a quote the attention of the whole world, and especially with us here in the Philippines, which for long has also been struggling against semi-colonial society. For us in the Philippines and for Palestine, we are both fighting against onslaught of imperialism headed by the United States, politically, economically, culturally, and also militarily. If Israel is US proxy to colonize Palestinians in the Philippines, you have also many proxies and US instrumentalities of colonization. But we are grateful. The world has never been the same after Palestinians have demonstrated their resistance against Zionism and imperialism. The Sumud, the vivacious seed of resistance, has become an inspiration to all the peoples of the world fighting for social liberation and for a just and lasting peace, which our Lord Jesus Christ has gifted us with. We are therefore with you in solidarity with the Palestinian people in this struggle. Long live the Palestinian people. Long live the solidarity among all struggling peoples of the world for a genuine peace and abundant life for all. Thank you and good day.
Thank you. Free Palestine. Yes.
Free Palestine.
Next, we listen to the solidarity message of Dr. Huang Poho of GKAPS, the lead organization in this gathering, Global Kairos Asia Pacific Solidarity Group for Palestine. Dr. Poho is the director of the Academy for Contextual Theologies in Taiwan and has a
On behalf of Global Kairos Asian Pacific Solidarity with Palestine, GKAP, to welcome you to the Sumud Forum, Indian-Filipino Conversation. This forum marked the first theological event organized by the GKAP Theology Committee, which Lizette is the coordinator of the committee, and fostering steadfast Asian solidarity with Palestinian people amidst the rich diversity of Asian culture and socio-political context. As co-moderator of GKAP, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Lizette and Renjen for their tireless effort in organizing this program, as well as to the speakers for their valuable contribution. I hope this inaugural forum will pave the way for GKAP to strengthen Asian solidarity with the Palestinian people and promote mutual understanding of the various issues faced by the people and countries of Asia. I wish the forum a successful and productive session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Poho. I think we are already successful because we have gathered together and we are showing our solidarity with the Palestinian people. Thank you. Is Dr. Songram already?
Yes,
prepared?
I'm here now.
Yes, Dr. Songram, please go ahead.
Extremely sorry. Some people just peeped into my room. I have to just attend. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Songram.
Yeah.
Dr. Songram Basumatari is the principal of Gurukul Lutheran Theological College in India. And yes, please share your greetings, sir.
So thank you very much. So all like-minded theologians, scholars, and the leaders standing in solidarity with suffering Palestinians. So I convey the greetings from Gurukul Lutheran Theological College and Research Institute. Of course, Gurukul came to close attachment with the people of Palestine last year because we organized Indo-Palestinian Theological Conversation with Bethlehem Bible College, where Dr. Prasanna, our brother Ranjan Solomon, they were instrumental in organizing that one. So we are very close. We have been praying for, and we have been just talking about very pathetic situation. Of course, I don't say thank you also to God. On 3rd October, we left Israel from the airport. On 7th, that unexpected and unwanted incident happened, followed by brutal massacre of people in Gaza and people in Palestine as a whole. So our hearts are really close with him. Of course, when we landed, Dr. Muntar Isaac, briefed us in detail the situation of Palestinians, Christians in particular, and Palestinians in general. So as soon as we were exposed, enter our perspective, 21 professors from Gurukul, our perspective changed about what is so-called Holy Land and what is happening in all holy biblical sites. So our perspective completely changed. Even we were thinking, also speaking, whether Holy Land is really holy now, seeing the situation. So that was the kind of really challenge. We took it. And since then, we have been in very close contact with Bethlehem Bible College, in particular Jack Sarah, and then Munker and some of the colleagues there. So our heart is with them. And then I really appreciate Dr. Ranjan, Dr. Prosunen, and others, those who are working with this Kairos committee for organizing this, particularly on the concept of Sumud. Of course, our mind and our spirit, because of the situation, go against this Sumud. To tell you frankly, we are agitated. But I am really happy that there are clouds of people standing in solidarity with the Palestinians. Then we are one among them. And whatever way we can stand with them and give little pressure, drop by drop, to make or to bring change in the situation in Palestine and the Palestinians, Christians, as well as other Palestinians. With this, once again, I wish all the best for this webinar. Then I congratulate the organizers for organizing this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Songram. For our last solidarity message, we will listen to a bishop of the United Methodist Church, and he's also representing the Ecumenical Bishops Forum. Let us welcome Bishop Ciriaco Francisco.
Is he around already?
Yes, he is.
Ah, okay.
Bishop Seri?
Parang wala pa siya, do. Diyan na?
I think, yeah.
Ah, Bishop.
Bishop, you just need to unmute from your end, Bishop.
Unmute mo. Paano i-ano yun? Close up.
Can you unmute, Bishop? Okay.
There are a lot of people surrounding him, so maybe he's asking for some assistance.
Okay. Okay, so if he's not able to share his message right now, maybe let's proceed with the main speakers.
Then we can have him later on.
Yeah, we can have him later on.
Okay.
We have 3 main speakers this afternoon. One from Palestine, of course, and then 2 other women from India and the Philippines. So first, we are truly honored and glad to have with us Miss Yasmin Rishmawi. Let me introduce her briefly. Yasmin Rishmawi is a Palestinian Christian, born and raised in Bethlehem, Palestine. She holds a master's degree in cultural anthropology and development studies from KU Leuven, Belgium, a bachelor of theology and religious studies, and she's currently pursuing a research master's in theology and religious studies, also at KU Leuven in Belgium. Yasmin is an active volunteer with the Christ at the Checkpoint youth group and is also representing the Middle East on the executive committee of the World Student Christian Federation. Let us welcome Yasmina Rishmawi.
Thank you so much, Lidette, and good morning to all, and or good afternoon. I'm sorry for my voice, I'm a bit sick, so I hope you can hear me well. I'm so honored and happy to be amongst all of you. I feel at home amongst all of you, honestly, and It's an honor to be here and to share this space with all of you and with all the speakers and all those who are contributing to this webinar. And special thanks to Ranjan and Lizette for all the organizing efforts. It took months to get here, so thank you so much for your efforts. I really appreciate it. And also, again, thank you, Lizette, for the introduction. So yes, I'm from Bethlehem and I'm living in Belgium for my studies right now. I was also born in Bethlehem, just like Jesus. And honestly, it's during these days, it's an honor. It's also a weight on my heart to stand before you and to discuss such important themes of Sumud and resistance and defending life. Because for us as Palestinians, these are not abstract concepts or words. These are they form the core of our daily existence, and I'm not exaggerating. But first, let me be clear. When I use the term Palestine, when I talk about Palestine, I refer to the whole land between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, the whole 27,000 kilometers. Whether we are in Haifa, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Gaza, or Hebron, we perceive ourselves as Palestinians, and we perceive the land as Palestine. This is how we perceive the identity of the land. This is how we express our identity and the land's identity, how we experience it. So I'm quite aware that I'm quite aware of the tension that this might cause, but I invite you to hold that tension and to bear with me and maybe to see the world through my eyes and the eyes of a Palestinian and Palestinian Christians. Well, basically the eyes of the oppressed. And I also intentionally refrain from using the term Holy Land. The term has been used continuously to justify the colonization of the land and to describe a land that is abstract, that is full of holy sites that you can read about in a document that is 2,000 years old. But for us, the land is the places mentioned in the Bible, the miracles, the paths that Jesus walked through. All these places are real and tangible to us. These are not. This is not a mere imagery of a distant past that we need to envision. These are the cities that we grew up in, the paths that we walked on. So for example, in Jesus' birth story in the Bible, it mentioned that the shepherds went to visit the baby Jesus. And for me, where I come from, Bet Sahur, this is our heritage. We say that we are the descendants of the shepherds, and we are proud of our heritage. So as Palestinian Christians, we really perceive ourselves as an extension of the first church and the first Christians. So yeah, because Jesus was born in Bethlehem, he grew up in Nazareth, he was baptized in the Jordan River, and he lived most of his life in the Galilee. He was crucified and died and was buried in Jerusalem, and his resurrection took place in Jerusalem. So these places and the miracles and the paths and the cities and the waters, all these are tangible. These are places that we experience and places that we live in, and he's therefore always present for us. And the Bible is a tangible place for us. Also, for example, well, I will try not to. I have a script and I'll try to stick to it, but I have a joke. Basically, in Palestine, we have a deep connection to Jesus. We think that he is one of us. And basically, in Bethlehem, if you go to some place and you want to explain that the place is too old, you just say, Jesus had breakfast here. It's just we have a personal connection to Jesus because he lived amongst us. So today, yes, many of you already know, and many of you already mentioned, over 76 years have passed since the state of Israel has been established over our mass graves, over the ruins of our erased villages, and the forced displacement of half of our population. As Palestinians, we have witnessed, and we're still witnessing, the land being colonized, the resources looted, our people murdered, slaughtered, ethnically cleansed, our family members imprisoned, and all our olive groves burnt and grazed to the ground. We have witnessed our culture, food, history appropriated, our voices silenced, our resistance vilified, and our people dehumanized, subjugated, and oppressed. Today, we are confined to open-air prisons, whether we are in the West Bank or in Gaza or in refugee camps. We are occupied, closely controlled, policed, penalized for screaming against this injustice and oppression. Today, as we all know by now, in Gaza, we have witnessed a televised genocide for 378 days today. Over 42,000 Palestinians have been murdered over this year and some months. There are 10,000 Palestinians missing under the rubble of their own homes. and over 90% of Gaza's population of 2.1 million has been displaced already. And we are talking about over 75,000 tons of explosives dropped on one of the most densely populated areas in the world. So, and Gaza has been going through Israeli assaults for a long time. We are talking about 17 years of complete siege, of complete control of air, sea, and land by the Israeli regime. When throughout the years there were several assaults that were launched by Israel towards Gaza, killing thousands, maiming thousands, injuring and displacing thousands of others. But I also need to emphasize that we are not passive victims of these forces that subjugate us, and we are also not perfect victims. We are resistors. We defend our lives, and as for the theme of the webinar, yes, we celebrate our own sumud. We celebrate our own existence and our own resistance. For us to resist is to affirm our right to exist in the land of our ancestors in the face of every effort to displace and dehumanize us. I would say that this state violence, the ongoing Nakba, the ethnic cleansing, the colonization of the land, and everything that we are facing as Palestinians, and especially as Palestinian Christians, they have very deep theological underpinnings. So, because our Bible has been and continues to be used to justify and to uphold unjust political agendas that are oppressing and subjugating us, stripping us of our dignity, our freedom, and basic human rights. So these theologies, or let's say, or no, these ideologies, as my friend Dr. Yusuf Khouri says, these are ideologies and not theologies, because God is not there. There is no theo in it. It's an ideology. They are being used to justify the colonization of the land, and through certain interpretations of some texts in the Bible, they weaponize the Bible to diminish our agency as oppressed people by promoting empty peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation at the expense of our rights, dignity, and freedom. So for us as Palestinian Christians, the struggle for justice is not only political, but deeply theological. Our faith, which we view as a source of liberation and hope, has been twisted into a tool of our own oppression. The theology of the empire, like this colonial theology, has co-opted our sacred text, turning it into a weapon that justifies our dehumanization and subjugation. So as Palestinian Christians, we are often asked to pray for peace, to engage in dialogue, and to pursue reconciliation. We are urged, especially by many Western Christians and Christian institutions as well, to forgive up to 70 times 7, to turn the other cheek, and to remain silent as not to disrupt the peace. Additionally, there's often an emphasis on focusing only on our individual and often vertical relationship with God over any other earthly concerns. Some people assert that there's little for us in the world, and to be good Christians, we just have to pray for God and keep just an individual vertical relationship with God, and not to challenge or resist any theologies or ideologies and theological interpretations that are imposed on us, that actually strip us of our humanity and distort the concept of God and justice. So, but I ask, can we actually truly believe in a God who would demand that we surrender our dignity? A God who would command us to remain silent as our land is stolen, our people are murdered, and our future is erased? Like, is this theology demands that we accept our oppression as a divinely ordained destiny? This interpretation has turned our Bible into an enemy for us. Not good news anymore. It turned the Bible into an enemy for us as Palestinians, Palestinian Christians. It made us think again and again, like, is God against us? Does God love us? Are we just an afterthought? Why does the world make us feel that our souls are so cheap? Like, now we are talking about at least 40,000 souls, 40,000 lives already murdered. And we are seeing a televised genocide, like everyone on their phones. We've seen, like, in the past year, I think I've seen a bloodshed through my screen that I've never imagined anyone could see in a lifetime. The bloodshed, the shredded body that we have been seeing in front of our eyes, it's unimaginable to any of us. Honestly, but sadly enough, this is not the first time in my life that I feel that our souls are cheap. This is not. Like, I remember the first time I felt this feeling. It was in 2014. No, it was 2008, end of 2008, beginning of 2009, on the first Israeli war on Gaza. It was an assault on Gaza, and during that war or assault, Israel massacred over 1,400 Palestinians over the course of 40 days and wounded thousands others and made thousands others homeless. And I remember very well in 2000, end of 2008, I was sitting in bed and watching the news and reading the news, and I would refresh the page, and with every refresh of the page, you would see that the numbers of people murdered is rising with every refresh of the news page. And at that moment, I really felt that our souls are cheap, and then this feeling was intensified by the idea that many Western Christians and many Christian institutions tell us that, yeah, but we don't belong to the land of our ancestors. We don't belong to the land where God planted us, and this is our homeland. But for them, we don't belong there. It's not ours, and we are just collateral damage. So this theology, it really distorts our image of ourselves and our perception of God. Like it has a hegemonic power, and it strips us of our right to exist in our land, the land of our ancestors. It disturbs our perception of God and ourselves, but repeatedly conveying by words and actions that we are irrelevant to God and that our existence is just an afterthought, and denies us actually the right to live in peace, justice, and dignity in our own land, and insists again and again that we do not belong there. It's a colonial theology. It's a theology of prejudice and dehumanization because it privileges one people over another. Our lives are overlooked. We're just collateral damage. Our relevance is denied. Our existence it doesn't matter. It portrays us as subhuman, or well, more recently we've heard it a lot as human animals. So it justifies to itself and to those it serves that our existence is just an afterthought, and our thought and our murder, our genocide are all only collateral damage. It's our divine destiny. So this theology actually also demands from us obedience. It demands for us to accept the violent oppression of our own people, to accept our ethnic cleansing and colonization of our land because of how it interprets God's promise. And thus this theology expects from us, even demands from us, our active participation in our own oppression. And add to that, it also weaponizes morality. I will explain. It actually manipulates notions of equality and universal ethics to further oppress us. It mirrors like when someone comes and tells you Black Lives Matters, and then someone stands up and says, no, but all lives matter. But it doesn't work that way. When a people have been historically and systematically marginalized and oppressed, we need to focus on their lives. We cannot just repeat again the notion of equality and again, because it doesn't give justice to the people who have been systematically and historically marginalized and oppressed. So it actually, this theology claims to value all lives and claims that everyone is equal, but only when the lives of colonizers are at stake, and treats us, the colonized, as expendable collateral damage. So it asserts a universal morality that equates the murderer with the murdered under the guise of equality. It professes to be saddened and concerned when the lives of the colonized are obliterated, but only acts very fiercely and violently only when the colonizers claim to feel threatened. So the lives of the colonized, like our lives, are an afterthought, even if a thought at all. It's actually it's a theology that I would say it's a theology of neutrality, because it depicts neutrality as a place of higher morality. And I've heard many Western Christians say that we are not picking sides. There's enough polarity, or both sides are wrong, or it's too complicated, or like such notions. Apart from the fact that they actually again equate the colonizers with the colonized, they also reinforce a false notion of neutrality, that the neutrality has a superior moral position. But neutrality in the face of oppression, and we all know, only enables the oppressor, and it maintains the unjust status quo, and further exacerbates the suffering of the oppressed. Well, Lizette is telling me that I have 3 minutes left, but I think I have a bit more. Is it okay, Lizette, if I'll try to be faster? So basically, what I think I want to also mention that in Bethlehem, where I come from, we often see a lot of tourists coming to visit the Nativity Church. And these tourists, when they come, the pilgrims, when they come, they come from Jerusalem mainly. They cross through the apartheid wall, they cross through the checkpoint, they cross through refugee camps, and they cross through stolen lands, and then they go to the Nativity Church. They visit the old stones, the 2,000 years old stones, and then leave. But basically, what about us? What about us? We call ourselves the living stones, the ones that can actually tell you our own history, the history of the land. And for me, like people now, like Christmas is coming, and only people will be caring about baby Jesus. But what about other Palestinian babies who are being murdered, and we are watching their murder right now? So again, this theology asks us to forgive oppression. But we are still subjugated to it. And it asks us to love our enemies as they murder us and take our family members hostage, to turn the other cheek as our olive groves are being confiscated, and to have a dialogue together to reach reconciliation while our people in Gaza are going through genocide. So does loving our enemy actually entail that we accept injustice and strive for superficial gestures of peace? Or can we actually forgive a sin that is still ongoing and unrepented for? Should
You were just muted, Yasmin.
Oh,
Maybe,
okay.
yeah.
Can I go on? Yeah. Okay. Really, what I was going to say that how can we actually be asked to have a dialogue while a genocide is still ongoing, and to forgive for unrepented and non-stopping sin? So actually, true forgiveness requires repentance first, and requires a cessation of our oppression and the colonization of the land, and a true commitment to justice and not just reforms. So expecting us, the oppressed, to forgive while still being actively subjected to injustice is like asking asking a man with someone's boot on his neck, suffocating him, to not scream, to not defend themselves, and to silently surrender to death. This expectation to forgive denies the suffering and actually upholds the ongoing injustice. I'll try to be faster. I know I'm running out of time, but actually, I would say, as we as Palestinian Christians, as Christians worldwide, as theologians, we actually need to resist such theologies that actually dehumanize us and ask for our silent death, and ask for a fake neutrality and fake peace that is built on over our dead bodies. So how do we resist? What does it mean to resist? What does it mean to defend life in Palestine? Resistance can take many forms, either from planting olive trees in land that are threatened to be confiscated, either from speaking up about Palestine, talking about its history, talking about what's going on right now, organizing in the streets, putting pressure on politicians, or actually amplifying Palestinian voices. It's actually, and also, and more importantly, for us as Christians, I think our resistance is also theological, because it is a refusal to accept the distorted image of God that is imposed on us by the theology of the empire. It's a commitment to reclaim the Bible as a source of liberation and not oppression, because we know that God is God of the oppressed, and Jesus was a liberator. And it's a theology that actually sees the word and reads the Bible through the eyes of the marginalized, the poor, and the oppressed. It's a theology that recognizes that loving our enemy does not mean giving up our rights or our dignity or our liberation. It actually means that it's our shared responsibility to liberate ourselves and our enemies from the sin that they are imposing on us. As true followers of Jesus, we have a responsibility to seek justice. It's a duty to challenge the empire. We cannot focus on the vertical individual relationship with God and abandon our horizontal relationship within our communities and the world. We have a responsibility towards the world, and the cross is both vertical and horizontal. And actually, GKAPS Palestine makes it clear that the military occupation of our land is a sin against God and humanity, and it's a duty for us and responsibility for us to fight that sin and to challenge and resist that sin. That is Sumud, that is resistance. And we need a theology that cultivates hope. We need a theology of action that actually stands against colonization, apartheid, genocide, and ethnic cleansing, and a theology that actually takes a firm stance against all of those and does not fund it and does not support it either by words or by action or economically, at least. We need a theology that recognizes that God interfered in human history 2,000 years ago, and now it's our time to be God's tools on earth, and we need to be brave enough to allow God to work through us. And I think as oppressed people, we can either actively reinforce the systemic violence of the empire by doing nothing and thus passively reinforcing this violence, or respond by resisting it. Therefore, it is imperative for us as oppressed people and people worldwide to actually seek justice, to actively resist oppression. Resistance is actually the epitome of love. It is a commitment to collective liberation for both ourselves and our oppressors. So we must reclaim the Bible as good news again, as an active tool for our liberation, not a tool for colonization and oppression. We need to reclaim our faith and to embrace the perception of God as good and just, and Jesus as a liberator. So today, as Palestinians, we believe that we are nailed to the cross with Jesus right now, and we are walking with him through the Via Dolorosa towards his death on the cross. We walk with him through the pain, the torture, and the humiliation. We are nailed to the cross, but we know that resurrection is coming and our liberation is inevitable. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Yasmina. Yes, liberation is inevitable. And we hold on to that prayer and that hope. Thank you. Let us now listen to our next speaker, Reverend Dr. Nelavala Gnana Prasuna. Dr. Prasuna is an ordained minister of the South Andhra Lutheran Church and currently serves as the professor in the Department of Theology and Ethics and Dean of Graduate Studies at GLTC. She has been involved in pastoral ministry for 3 years and has almost 18 years of experience as a theological educator. Dr. Prasuna?
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth, for this introduction. And I want to thank Ranjan for giving me this opportunity to be with you this afternoon. And greetings from Gurukul Lutheran Theological College. Okay, the topic that I have chosen is the resistance cut to size by the people towards defending life. The resistance cut to size by the people towards defending life. Okay, I came across the concept Sumud for the first time when I was in Jerusalem for a program organized by Swedish Theological Institute. In today's Indian context, the Arabic term Sumud means steadfastness, embodies a profound and unwavering dedication to survival and resistance amidst systemic oppression and exclusion. Especially in India, Dalits, tribals, women, minorities, and other marginalized, affected by caste, gender, race, economic inequalities, and whatnot. Sumud is an act of daily resistance, as a previous speaker was pointing it out. It's daily resistance, a deliberate resentment to violence and social exclusion. As a Dalit feminist theologian standing in solidarity with Palestine naturally aligns with the fight against systematic oppression and colonization. And of course, Indian Dalits and Palestinian occupation share the similar stories of dispossession, dehumanization, and erasure. Both are subjected to deeply rooted systems of structural violence that strip away their basic rights, dignity, and autonomy. Sumud is often presented as a national and moral duty and as a symbol of the Palestinian resilience in the face of adversity. A theological exploration of Sumud and resistance towards defending life highlights the sacredness of life and the imperative to resist structures of death and oppression. Theologically, both Sumud and resistance can be understood as forms of embodied hope, expressions of divine solidarity with the oppressed. In the Christian tradition, this resistance resonates with God's preferential option for the poor and the marginalized, where Jesus' life and ministry exemplify the defense of the vulnerable. As Asli was sharing this, that they experience the life of Jesus even today, moving around Palestine, Galilee, everywhere there. By integrating Sumud's steadfast endurance with the fight for life-affirming equality affirms resistance as a sacred, transformative act that seeks to restore human dignity and embody God's justice on the earth. With the extremist ideologies of Zionism and Hindutva, life is at stake. Both ideologies do not pay attention to the violence and the destruction of life. But the latest general elections in India exemplify resistance to authoritarianism, especially Dalit women and Christian Dalit women playing a significant role through their activism. Pratap Banu Mehta writes, the general elections of 2024 is a wondrous moment. The air of despondency, the suffocating shadow of authoritarianism, and the nauseous winds of communalism have at least for the moment lifted. Hindutva ideology had suffocated India, but outer resistance helped save the country from authoritarian politics. What triggered this dramatic change? How did people endure the long years of authoritarianism? What sustained their defiance? These questions are crucial in the context of occupied Palestine and continuing war between Israel and Iran. And this study is inspired by the Palestinian concept of Sumud and examines the resistance of Indian voters and highlights the parallels between Israel and India, focusing on the experiences. And emphasizing how steadfastness and resistance intersect in the fight for justice and dignity. The past reveals that resistance has been a catalyst for social change and has played a significant role in achieving independence and social justice. For example, Montgomery bus boycott and march in Washington raised awareness about racial segregation and injustice, leading to significant legal and societal changes. Anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, led by figures like Nelson Mandela, resulted in global awareness and eventually the dismantling of apartheid. Feminist and womanist movements have highlighted global awareness about gender equality, leading to ongoing social transformation. These movements of resistance continue to influence the world. South Africa, which experienced the devastating apartheid, resists the ongoing war and filed case in the International Court of Justice to halt Israel's genocide. International resistance, solidarity, and intervention are crucial in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and ongoing war between Israel and Iran to achieving peace between the two nations. And Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the Middle East war, already so much has been spoken. And since 1948, Palestinians have endured, as a previous speaker and the moderator and others have already expressed, have endured malnutrition, torture, sieges, forced displacement, thousands of children orphaned, creating a deeply traumatic situation for the young. Ranjan Solomon says that Israel is employing two punitive strategies, brutalizing and dehumanizing Gaza through the systemic elimination of the Palestinian population. Amidst such violence and loss, Israel Prime Minister draws a biblical analogy to the Amalekites from the book of Deuteronomy, which states, "Blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." This passage is widely interpreted as a call for genocide against Gaza. His use of violent biblical references has raised alarm among critics, theologians, and biblical scholars. Amid numerous statements advocating expulsion and genocide by Israel's leaders, there is rarely any condemnation from India against such violent rhetoric. Western nations like UK and the USA play a double standard role. In the current Middle East war, the UK's involvement in providing humanitarian aid remains significant, with efforts focused on supporting civilians affected by the conflict. The Labour government reinstated funding to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian refugees. But meanwhile, the UK military has been positioned to assist Israel in its defense by sending all their typhoons to support Israel defense against potential missile threats, etc. So they, on the one side, they wanted to provide humanitarian aid. On the other side, they're supporting military. And similarly, the United States continues to play a complex role, calling for a ceasefire in public statements, while simultaneously offering military support to Israel in whatever the way they wanted to support Israel. So this kind of double stance with calls for peace on the one hand, and backing military operations on the other raises concerns about the effectiveness of such a contradictory approach in fostering long-term peace. These mixed signals risk undermining diplomatic efforts and may hinder progress towards resolving the conflict. However, South Africa initiated to file a complaint in International Court of Justice against Israel's genocide, which inspires many countries to join the cause. And of course, Israel Prime Minister, in response to the South Africa's file, which is a complaint, he says, "No one will stop us, not the Hague, not the axis of evil, not anyone else." And that, so he says, "I will continue. My country will continue to fight, to bomb, and destroy the neighboring countries." However, it's important to note that obtaining an order from the International Court of Justice to halt military actions in itself is a crucial step. First step in acknowledging that there is a higher authority capable of resisting Israel. And I see parallels between the Zionist policies of Israel and the Hindutva policies of India, India's BJP, both of which disrupt the peace of their own nations too. And in response to ICJ filed by the complaint filed by the South African government, as I already said, Israeli Prime Minister's statement, "No one will stop us." And in the recent remarks in response to Iran's attacks, he says, "We will show our might." And these statements need to be critiqued theologically. The Bible is a powerful source of inspiration when it is interpreted correctly and allowed to speak clearly on human rights. Though kings in the ancient world and Israel contributed and played a valuable role in the social structures of their age, they were critiqued by prophets and other biblical authors whenever they abused power and become the oppressors. It's an urgent need that international communities to stand against genocide and help Israel to understand the destruction that their country is causing to its own nation and the neighboring countries and the world at large. Both Indian and Israel governments who assign absolute power to themselves need a retrospection. Indian voters' resistance can be an example how resistance can bring down the authoritarian mindset of Israeli leaders. BJP's statement, "There is no alternative," has been resisted by Indian voters, and the ruling party of BJP has been cut to size by the people of India. The ruling party BJP in India, with its Hindutva ideology, had banked on the Rama Mandir temple to be their trump card, with Indian Prime Minister residing over the opening of the unfinished temple in Ayodhya in January 2024. But the fact is that in the Faisalabad constituency, where Ram Mandir temple is located, the BJP, the ruling party, lost in the general elections. And the results of the 2024 general elections are distressing for a leader who professed to be sent by God. Our Prime Minister was claiming that he was sent by God. And now he lost. When the media managers made sure that the Prime Minister's photo was shown at petrol stations, COVID vaccination certificates, airports, railway stations, and every other possible location, India was ready for the political power shift. And I also want to insist that the party's manifesto, BJP party's manifesto, which was made public prior to the 2024 elections, reportedly had 43 images of Narendra Modi, in addition to references to him 16 times and to the term Modi almost 30 times. And friends, however, there is no alternative turned into Modi is cut to size by the people. While the winners appear subdued, the runners-up are celebrating, says BBC News. And the narcissistic and terrifying image of some Indian leaders has been diminished by the resistance of Indians who oppose such leadership. The resistance of the so-called illiterate voters, the marginalized, the economically disadvantaged with limited formal education, and the workers from the unorganized sector have been pivotal in safeguarding India. And the 2024 elections in India have delivered a clear message. The country does not endorse the ideology of Hindutva, which advocates for one nation, one culture, one language, and one religion, with no rights for non-Hindus, and that India stands for plurality, democracy, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and the welfare of people and the nation. In this context, how Sumud and resistance, we can think about these concepts towards defending life. And I feel that the resistance of Indian voters to bring down the authoritarian politics can serve as an example for people in Palestine and Israel to deal with the politics and bring down the authoritarianism and Zionist ideologies. In the light of ongoing Middle East war and violent conflicts between Israel and Palestine, the theme of Sumud and resistance, defending life, offers a profound critique of systemic violence while emphasizing on unwavering solidarity with victims. The theological commitment to defending life in this context calls for a radical, active solidarity that transcends national boundaries and social divisions, echoing the spirit of Sumud. This solidarity is not passive. It's a resistance that seeks justice and peace, holding oppressive powers accountable while supporting the healing and survival of those whose lives are shattered by violence. Social media played a significant role in India as a resistance and steadfastness in creating awareness, which led Indian citizens to resist despotism and the Hindutva ideology. Platforms that were once hubs for entertainment have rapidly transformed into spaces for news, information, campaigns, and more. Following global trends, political parties in India are also leveraging, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, WhatsApp, and other social media channels to catch the attention and support from voters against Hindutva ideologies. But I would like to reiterate that as the conflict escalates in the Middle East, voices for peace are being drowned out, but a group of Israeli and Palestinian women is determined to keep working to demand a better future for their children. As a news reporter, Michael Hellman reports, it's a future that they hope we break the cycle of violence. There are some organizations like Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun are two grassroots movements advocating for peace and coexistence amid the ongoing conflict in Israel and Palestine. In the current context of war, these groups continue to work together, pushing for non-violent solutions and a ceasefire. And it's important, taking these women into decision-making process would help in bringing peace. And together, these movements call for an end to the violence, prioritizing dialogue and empathy over warfare. Women are not only victims, but also catalysts. And Palestinian women holding on to Sumud principles of steadfastness, hoping for peaceful negotiations between Israel and Palestine. And it's important, as a Nobel Peace Prize winner and women's rights activist, Lema Bowie once said, "The world will never know peace until women's voices are heard." Now it is the time to answer the call of Palestine and Israeli women to listen to their voices and to stand with them in their pursuit of peace. And implications. A few suggestions. This paper asserts that Sumud, the steadfastness and resistance of the powerless through writings, peace protests, and campaigns has brought a significant change in India, South Africa, Palestine, and many other places. And I have a few implications for those who are present here. Let's become advocates for ceasefire. Though Israel is stubborn to listen to the Hague, ICJ, or any country, or the UN, we believe in the power of Sumud and resistance. We can raise our voice through petitions, social media, and even contacting political representatives to demand an immediate ceasefire. Let's join or organize global protests and peace rallies that call for an end to the violence, occupation, amplifying the message of peace and life with dignity. Let us collaborate with organizations like Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun, the organizations which are working for peace in Israel and Palestine. We can amplify women's and marginalized voices in India by educating and bringing awareness, especially against Zionist and Hindutva ideologies that threaten life. Indian Church should take a stand to express solidarity with victims and influence the government to support peace talks. Above all, let's pray with one accord that the Israeli government repent and rethink their strategies of eliminating lives of those who raise voice for justice and for peace. Let's pray for the reign of God come there in the name of repentance, forgiveness, and reconciliation, so that life begins to feel, to breathe in the Middle East. Middle East war affects us also, the Asians, and the other countries, and the world at large. It affects the nature, the beautiful creation, women, children, the disabled, the most vulnerable are losing their lives. People are in fear. It affects our economy too, the Indian economy, the Asian economy, and the neighboring countries. It affects the lives of the marginalized. We all have to unite in fighting for the right to live in peace and in abundance. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prasanna. Indeed, women should be in the struggle, and women are actively working for peace, resistance. Yeah, thank you. I just realized that our speakers, our main speakers for our forum are all women, because we truly honor the participation of women in the struggle. Our third speaker in this main session, or in the main part of the program, is Bishop Ligaya San Francisco. She is, do you know that her name, Ligaya, actually means joy? Maybe she will usher in joy. Bishop Ligaya San Francisco is a bishop of the United Church of Christ in the Philippines and represents the Ecumenical Bishops Forum in the Philippines. She serves and leads in one of the most vulnerable communities in the country, the Northwest Mindanao jurisdiction. This is the land of tribe people in the Philippines. So altogether, there are Christians, Muslims, and indigenous peoples. Let us welcome Bishop Ligaya.
Thank you, Dr. Lisette, for that introduction. Good day to all who are in attendance today's web conversation on Sumud and Resisting Defending Life. I would like to share some visual here because I'm a visual person. And While the Philippines is beset with issues that preoccupy the two houses, namely the Senate and the House of Representatives, with a series of hearings on Philippine offshore gaming operator known as POGO, and the past administration's war on drugs, extrajudicial killings, and lately the filing of certificate of candidacy for the midterm election. And I think it's ongoing, the gathering of military forces in the Philippines, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and UK at Taguig for the Kamandag exercises, and it is ongoing starting October 15 to 25, 2024. So while these are happening in the Philippines, people and siblings.
Bishop, can I interrupt you a bit? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yung ano lang po, yung pag-move ng slides po. Medyo
Okay.
delayed siguro, no? Pero anyway. Yun po. Thank you.
Okay. Next. Okay, next now. Okay. People and siblings in Palestine are struggling for their life. For quite some time now, news tells us of the harrowing and horrifying bombings, and the sharing of our first speaker was so profound to me, and it's so unimaginable, especially if we see the structures that are being bombed, like the hospitals, like the food distribution centers and other significant facilities in Palestine. Killings of innocent and vulnerable people is way far beyond to bear. I could not imagine the trauma, the anxiety, the fear of attacks, the growing seas engulfed them in Palestine this time. And the scene of precariousness of the future and what it holds for our sisters and brothers in Palestine caused our hearts to bleed. In spite of our own realities in our respective countries, we cannot ignore the call of our siblings of the unbearable hardships and massive loss of lives they are facing right now. When asked how they were able to survive, persist, and endure, their only answer is sumud, which means in Arabic resiliency and steadfastness. This is the first time I've heard that word. A people who opt to stay and hold on to their faith and hope, believe that they are not alone in this struggle for life. In the face of deliberate annihilation, the rest of the world will stand for them, especially the churches who committed to accompany, to work to raise awareness on their plight and advocate for justice. I believe this is where they draw strength and reason to hope, because they knew deep down, that in spite of the loss that reduced them into a second-class citizen in their own land, walls that limit their mobility, regardless of the borders to contain them, but their faith is free to believe that God does not run out of people who will speak on their behalf, people who let their voices out, which have been long muted. Their semblance of Palestinian and Filipino indigenous people, or Lumads, plight, especially in Mindanao. Not only the Lumads, but with the Moro people. The Palestinians' unwavering commitment to defend their land and their people echoes the same with struggles of our Filipino indigenous people. The struggles to claim this sovereignty over their ancestral domain, and always being the victims of land grabbing by the state to give way to the expansion of large-scale development projects, which frequently bring little or no benefits to local communities. Women, including men, are unable to secure employment with the mining companies. And those who could not bear to leave their communities to find job in urban areas suffer extreme poverty in cities like the northern city of Baguio or in Manila. Lack of skills that do not match to the urban needs usually lead them to explosion and being pushed to the margins. According to a joint stakeholders report to the UN Universal Periodic Review on the Philippines in September 2016, submitted by Katribo, National Alliance of Indigenous People, there were 102 extrajudicial killings were committed by the Aquino administration. And the numbers continue even in President Duterte's administration, despite of the calls to end the killings of Lumad by the military, vigilantes, and private security forces suspected of carrying out the attacks. Moreover, most of the victims have been known as those notable opponents of mining, oil plantations, corruption, and government abuses. Massive militarization in Mindanao and being caught in the armed conflict, the red tagging, the forced displacement have caused Lumad's exodus to the urban cities where they knew nothing of ways to survive. In our experience of accommodating some displaced indigenous people, negative reactions from our members were expressed and had to be addressed as they were shocked with their presence in the vicinity of the church. It takes a lot of meetings and articulations of faith before they were finally accepted and catered by the church, due to fear that the host church might be implicated in the red tagging issue. Later, they ended up begging in the streets, aid from churches depleted. They became victims of cheap labor and prostitution and exposed to the evils of the city life. Palestinians struggled to resist the Israeli takeover and settlement of their land. Has shared the IP's sentiments to claim their human rights and endure the resistance of taking over their inherited land from their ancestors. If the Palestinians choose to stay and undeterred of the danger and risk each day, and choose to the refrain Al-Hayat Lazim, life must go on, it is our call as churches to stand with them. Prophet Amos challenged us to let justice roll down like waters. As the words of the Palestinian people once said to a pastor, we do not want to hear about Jesus anymore, but we want to see Jesus acting now. That was a desperate plea for those who commit to follow and serve our living God. That was so moving and touching for people who are uncertain of their lives. It's a call to action this time. This is a call for all of us now. In solidarity with Palestinian people, how are our engagement in the misery be translated into concrete and tangible actions as we put life in the Sumud? One example of engagement is the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, accompaniment through the missionaries in the churches in Jordan and Holy Land. They offer services such as education, healthcare, gender and environmental justice, and young adults in global mission program, sending of members and leaders to Holy Land trips for exposure for them to go and tell after. The ELCA believes of this component of Sumud. For peace condition to take place, there must be justice. It is very clear to them that the foundation has to end the occupation and a life for Palestinians and Israelis have the same access to freedom, to live with dignity and with human rights. What are our ways to support Sumud in resisting and defending lives in Palestine? The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America declaration will give us an idea on how to do it in our respective churches and our organizations. To end this conversation, let me share the statement made by the 66 bishops, shared by Bishop Laurie A. Larson Cesar, which was released in March 16, 2024 in one of the webinars to help amplify their voices of advocacy for justice in Palestine and Israel. And as our way forward, we can duplicate their initiatives and support the statement. I would like also to share some of the part of their statement. The Conference of Bishops of Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, ELCA, is adding its voice to the growing group of faith leaders urgently calling for a permanent bilateral ceasefire in Gaza. We urge President Joe Biden, our legislators, and all who lead and make decisions on behalf of the United States to do everything in their power to bring an end to the current suffering and lay the foundation for lasting peace with justice. Another excerpt from that statement. As members of the ELCA Conference of Bishops, we are elected to lead one of the largest Christian denominations in the United States. with nearly 3 million members in more than 8,700 worshiping communities across the 50 states and in the Caribbean region, we are compelled to advocate, to pray, and act by the social teaching of our denomination and by our belief, rooted in scripture, that all people are made in the image. The last one, too many have suffered, too many lives have been lost. Strong U.S. leaders needed to help bring a comprehensive permanent ceasefire and lasting peace. Our country's leadership is needed to support human rights and the Geneva Conventions, to resume funding to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and to provide greater access for humanitarian relief in Gaza, as well as to advocate for the immediate and safe return of the hostages and release of the political prisoners, for affirmation of both Israel and Palestine right to exist, and for a path forward that disrupts cycles of violence, mindful of the rise in hate targeted at people across complex intersections of race, ethnicity, and religion worldwide and nationally. We exhort our legislators, leaders, and neighbors to oppose hate in all forms, and we recommit ourselves to partnership in that same work. 1 Corinthians tell us, 12:26, and if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. Or if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Likewise, we in the Ecumenical Bishops Forum has a statement of which the co-chairperson, Bishop Seri Francisco, will read as part of his closing remarks in a little while. Also, to continue galvanizing the issue, let us hold local forums, talk to church leaders to support the Palestinian cause, maximizing social media campaign to highlight the issues and struggles of Palestinian, Lumad people, and Moro people. Free Palestine, stop arming Israel, stand with the Palestinian people, stop the genocide in Palestine. Thank you, and good day.
Thank you, Bishop Ligaya. Yeah, free Palestine. At this moment, we will have the solidarity message as well of the Ecumenical Bishops Forum to be shared by Bishop Ciriaco Francisco, a United Methodist Church bishop. Bishop Seri.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for giving us a chance to share our message to the public. To uphold human rights is to make peace. A year has passed since the brutal October 7 terror attack by the Palestinian militant group Hamas in Southeast Israel. These are an unthinkable series of unforgiving count by Israel to really half our children. These attacks have also hurt Israel, leaving them with 1.1 killed and 8.7 injured. As of October 16, half of the homes in Gaza have been destroyed. That is, 9 in 10 Gazans are being displaced from one unsafe place to another. According to the United Nations Population Fund, there are at least 43,580 pregnant women, meaning that tens of thousands of lives are at stake, including the future of their nation being conceived in their mother's womb. 17 of 36 hospitals partially functional. Palestinian struggles to deal with infectious diseases. These hospitals struggle to heal 105,403 injured individuals, mostly civilians. Aside from the lack of quality healthcare brought about by the war, more than half of their road networks, commercial facilities, and cropland areas have been destroyed. This puts Palestinian families at risk of malnutrition, which is no different than killing them with Israel's guns, bombs, and missiles. Furthermore, 87% of the school buildings have been damaged, robbing children of their right to education and opportunities to materialize their hopes and dreams for a better future. Depriving someone of means to live abundantly is the same as robbing God of his opportunity to use their life to build his kingdom on earth. Palestinian lives taken from God's life-giving hands, including 16,765 children. In those numbers, 10 with justice and peace have been destroyed to the ground. The Ecumenical Bishops' Forum is strongly condemned Israel's series of retaliatory attacks on Palestine as well as in Yemen and Lebanon. Killing civilians for the sake of self-defense will never be acceptable. Ultimately, a human person has no right to take another person's life, for it is not he who determines the course of life of the latter. Moreover, these attacks on Palestine have horribly turned into a genocide and war of aggression. To maintain its illegal occupation and expansion to Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem, the use of violence is justified. The EBF, or Ecumenical Bishops' Forum, denounces such use and therefore calls to uphold the result of the United Nations General Assembly on September 18, which adopted a resolution calling on Israel to end its illegal occupation of the above-mentioned Palestinian territories. The State of Israel is then mandated to leave Palestine within a year. As a member of the United Nations, Israel must acknowledge and adhere to the authority of that resolution. EBF also condemns the military aid being provided by states government of the United States to Israel, as such provision further atrocious military operations that put more lives in peril. Simultaneously, Ecumenical Bishops' Forum called out the U.S. for perpetuating proxy wars to advance their agenda. This is without doubt mismanagement of resources that impedes God's love to be displayed in full glory in the world, especially to the people of Palestine, Yemen, and Lebanon. Instead of funding military equipments and supplies, these reserves should be directed to humanitarian aid and socio-economic development projects to Palestine, Yemen, Lebanon can start again. If we indeed are children of God, we are called to be peacemakers. We seek and pursue peace by putting our selfish desires and seeking the well-being of others, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, culture, socioeconomic status, educational background, age, and gender. We make sure that a person's complete well-being is materialized through quality water, air, and food, free and accessible quality healthcare, medicine, and education, and a safe space where one can thrive and become the person God has intended to be. Therefore, we reiterate our call to uphold peace, each person's human rights, observing the international humanitarian law. We also call for all church formations to pray with perseverance as one ecumenical community attacks and the use of violence between conflicting nations in attaining its social political agenda. Let us pray for the leaders to prioritize the welfare of every human person, uphold their human rights, and recognize international laws and resolutions. Let us also pray for the safety of the victims, volunteers, journalists, and other civilians located in different parts of Palestine, Yemen, and Lebanon. As we pray for everyone, may we accompany these prayers with faithful action by calling for a ceasefire, encouraging our authorities to call out the perpetrators of violence, bringing the cause of those badly hurt and affected in our churches, homes, and out the streets, the raising awareness in all walks of life about the situation in Palestine as it concerns human life, a subject we all can relate to. May we remember that a human right exercise is God's righteousness materialized. Where God's righteousness is, there is also peace. Stop the genocide. Free Palestine. This is our message to the whole nation. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop Seri. And thank you to all our speakers. We are hearing the voice of the people, and it feels like we are hearing the voice of God, asking for justice and demanding peace. Before I pass on the microphone to our main organizer, Ranjan Solomon, I would just like to read a very short excerpt from the Statement of Union Theological Seminary in the Philippines. We stand with the Palestinian people in Gaza. Gaza, which means strength in ancient Semitic languages, and was called Gazat, which means prized city by the Egyptians. Woven medical cloth comes from Gaza. Gauze or Gaza has been used for centuries to bind. As we turn our eyes to the suffering people and crying children in Gaza, we claim the promise in Psalm 147, verse 3. God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. There is no justification for the massacre of innocents in Gaza or anywhere in the world. So we rise up and seek the healing of the innocent and the liberation of the land called Palestine. Free Palestine. Ranjan, you have the final word.
Thank you, Lizette. And this is the first time I think you have been a little dishonest. You're the main organizer, not I. I was your support person. So thank you for what you've done. I think this whole webinar went as it did, so smooth, so clear, so constructive, and with conclusions that I think we can all work with because of the way you organized it. And I'm not saying this myself. There are other people in GKAPS who have said that Lizette is a perfect organizer. So thank you so much. Plus, you bring so many other dimensions of your skills, your theology, your political understanding, your militant resistance to oppression. So I think you give us a kind of the kind of leadership that we needed, and I think we have to carry on from here. So we will come back together as a small group and see where we go from here. I have recorded this, so you will all get the recording of this. Having thanked Lizette, I must thank Yasmin. It's not always easy to get young people and young women. So when I called Palestine and I said, I want a young person, they gave me so many names and I said, no, I want a young woman. And then Yusuf Al-Khoury said, Yasmin Rashmawi. And I knew her because we had met once in Bethlehem, had breakfast together. And she was just climbing the ranks of the World Student Christian Federation as an important leader for the Middle East. So I was really grateful that I met her then, but then also grateful that she hadn't forgotten me. So when I called her, she remembered and was very positive. I have to mention a lot of names, but I'll have to also cut this down because we are running out of time. Prasanna is a good friend. And we have worked together on different things. I think we did a course together for Palestinians and Indians together on theological exchanges. And after that, Prasanna, with the help of Dr. Songram, took a group of theologians to Palestine for a week or 10 days, whatever it was. And so Prasanna's commitment to the Palestinian question has grown so much in the last couple of months, really. So it's within a year that she's grown into somebody who I would even call as a speaker to a conference on Palestine. Bishop Likayan Francisco, thank you so much. It's very good to have a change, with the screen showing images that help. But apart from that, your profound message, your profound and very radical call to discipleship. And I must also thank all those who gave messages of greeting, messages of solidarity at the beginning and towards the end. I think each message brought a slightly different dimension, but they all came in together. Now, I just want to give you one small story. On October 7th, when this event happened, and I'm not going to say it was an attack, when Hamas fought back, then it was October 7th, and it was my birthday. So I was in a very bad mood on my birthday because of what had happened. But, constantly I listen to programs and YouTubes in which the Western media is asking this question of people. How do you feel about October 7th? And the question is not October 7th. This started in 1948. October 7th was one of the resistance, one of the demonstrations of resistance against what the occupation was doing and the whole Nakba. This is part of the continuing Nakba. And as the bishop put it very well, you know, you have the right to resistance. You have the right to fight back, even if it is violent, because that's not a choice anymore. If you slap me on my left cheek, I'll show you my right. But if you slap me on my right cheek, I don't know what I'll do next. You know, so this is how it goes. Lisa, thank you once again. You know, you give us some really quality leadership. And I want to also, I cannot forget Poho. Poho is one of those people who keeps in touch with you. He's got this, he's a pastor. You know, he's a theologian, yes, but he's a pastor. He really cares about people and cares about what is happening. I was very encouraged by everything that he did. Today, we are meeting the day after Hamas's leader was killed, Sinwar. Benjamin Netanyahu thought, okay, now the war can be over. But they don't know that in killing 40,000 people, which I think is about 80 or 90,000 people really. And don't forget the number of people who were injured, the women, the children who have been permanently disabled. I think those numbers, as somebody said to a Western broadcaster, he said, you know, each life taken is a new militant for Hamas. So if you think Hamas will die, and if you think Netanyahu will finish Hamas, no, Netanyahu will go to prison for his corruption long before these people. And Hamas has not declined in any way. Hezbollah has joined in and made Hamas so much stronger. And so too the Houthis from Yemen. So yesterday when I was talking to Rifat and a few other Palestinians, I asked them, so are you feeling worried after Sinwar was killed? They said, no, we are winning the war. So Israel is losing. Thank you.
So thank you, Ranjan. We have so many friends to thank. Ate Ophel, NCCP, Chikai, and so many others. We continue the work. We continue the struggle. We will see a free Palestine, hopefully, in our time. All right, Yasmin? In our time. But maybe now we can take a photo together because we are grateful for the presence of everyone. If you can turn on your cameras, it will... the General Secretary of NCCP is still here. Thank you for remaining with us, Minian. Okay, so I'll take one shot and yeah, if you can turn on your cameras. Oh, I see our friends from India and from the Visayas, maybe in Mindanao. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then maybe another one with our fists. 1, 2, 3.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
Thank you, Lizette.
Have a good evening, everyone. Have a good morning, and God be with us all in the struggle.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Ranjan.
Yasmin.
Thank you, Lizette.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was a 2-hour.
Yes.
A 2-hour.
I actually, you know,
Stay.
deliberately kept it from 12:30 to 2:30 because I saw the number of people who would speak, and everyone spoke substance, you know, so much. So even what we call just the greetings, you know, were turned out to be messages of solidarity, very substantial, theological, political, everything. That was listen, no one else has done this. Like you. No one else.
You know, our students are in the churches. They're already doing their Bible study, so they were not really able to join. But we are really grateful for the others who were able to bring in their people.
We were 46, 48. Most of the time.
But in Gurukul, what happened? We had no classes last week due to rains, and we have classes today. So most of the students were in the class until 1 o'clock, and after that they have to go to lunch. hostel will be, mess will be closed. So,
Many of them joined also.
but somehow they joined actually.
Yes.
Many could not join due to classes and rearrangement of classes today. Usually Saturday is a holiday.
Okay.
But
Yeah. They want to rest.
unfortunately, today we have classes. It's a working day today. Due to heavy rains and other days, we could not have classes.
Right. So yeah, thank you, Prasanna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your work was your presentation was very scholarly and at the same time very grounded, very relevant.
Actually, certain things I have cut short because Ranjan was so long saying 15 minutes only.
Okay.
Sorry.
Not able to edit that, and then I thought I didn't have enough time to edit.
Lisa is still there. Lisa, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
still there, yeah.
You're a loyal friend.
Lisa.
Okay. Listen,
Okay.
I thought you will give some kind of a way forward or some.
Yeah, I made
you did.
I made
Of
it
course,
short.
you did give a statement anyway.
We can draw up a statement, can we? Is that?
Yeah, but she already gave one from Philippines, huh?
From UTS, I did, yeah. But if we want to come up with another
She's there.
statement on Sumud, and then maybe we can ask.
But this is fine actually what we have done.
Yeah.
Because you have already given us anyway this statement from the Palestinian.
Right. So I think we end here for now, and then maybe
Okay.
we can have a Christmas statement, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be
Brilliant.
Brilliant idea.
Maybe
Yeah.
it'll work.
Yeah. Just from GKAPS. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for now, we rest.
Ranjan. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy the weekend.
You too.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.